Hey, today I want to talk about single brood chambers. I manage all of my colonies as single brood chamber units, so I want to tell you a little bit about how they work well for me and why I think there's no reason why everyone shouldn't be using single brood chambers. I'm still really surprised at how often I talk to beginners, and so many of them don't think that keeping a colony as a single brood chamber is a wise idea, and they all think that they need to keep double brood chambers. And I'm here to say that's absolutely just not the case. So this colony, I've just dug into it. It had three honey supers on it, 2 deeps and 1 medium depth here. They're actually all full right now. I've got to give them another one here today. And I use, on top of all my single brood chambers, a queen excluder right away, right from the start. The first time I put a honey super on top, they get a queen excluder and then the supers. So the queen is always down, limited to just 1 box and 10 frames in it. So the reason I do it is because beekeeping is all about understanding what's going on with your hive and problem solving. And for me, a single brood chamber makes diagnosing and problem solving a lot easier. I know my queen is down in 1 box, any problems with the hive is going to happen down here, and honey supers are irrelevant to the whole thing. When you have a queen in just a single box, the bees have to make an efficient use of the space. I like to see really only a couple frames with honey on them, but most of the frames should look like this. The bees off of it. So I'd like to see as many frames as possible that look like this, just solid top to bottom brood, and often you'll find the corners taken up with pollen or honey, but in this case there's not even a lot of that. Here's another one, brood. Another solid frame. Cap brood on this one. This frame I added relatively recently, and this is a lot of new wax that the bees are making, but it's actually all full of eggs and larvae on both sides. You can tell the new wax from the old wax. That is also a solid frame of brood. And then right to the outside of this hive, that's brood and pollen on this frame. I'll show you. So there's a patch of brood in the center. This is a big section of pollen, a little bit of honey up top, and the very outside, this is mostly pollen all through the center here. So hopefully within single brood chambers you usually find one really solid frame that contains lots of pollen. That's a really good efficient use of space that I like to see. When I first dug into the hive, out on this side were some frames that they're mostly filling with honey. 2 or 3 frames on the edge here was just mostly honey before we got into that solid, 6 frames of brood in this colony. So it looks great. I'm going to put it back together. Added 1 more super on this hive in addition to these 3. We've still got at least a good month of honey production left for the season. So hopefully if they can fill this and maybe a bit more, a lot of these hives will be on track to produce 200 pounds of honey. And for the season that we've had in this area, I think that'll be better than the average hive for sure. So I'm really happy to see that, and it shows you that keeping hives in a single brood chamber really doesn't limit the colony's growth. And on top of that, I've actually taken nukes out of Almost every hive in this yard has had a nuke, including this one for sure, had a nuke pulled out of it at some time this season too. Okay, let's talk some numbers when it comes to single brood chambers. Most of the skeptics that I hear of single brood chambers mention how it might not be possible to have enough space for the queen to lay in just one box. And I'm going to try and put that to rest here with some numbers. So this is a regular standard depth frame made for a 9 5/8 box. And I did some counting on this sheet of foundation. We have 80 cells wide by 44 cells deep. So that means if you do the math, on one side of one frame, we have 3,520 cells. In a standard single brood chamber, you'll run 10 frames, each having 2 sides, so we have 20 sides. And if you do the math on that, it means we have a total of 70,400 cells on 10 frames in our single box. So the next question is, how many eggs can a queen lay? And while I haven't done any counting firsthand, a good estimate that's commonly heard is 1,500 eggs per day. So 1,500 eggs, and a development period for worker bees in each of these cells is 21 days. So 1,500 per day for 21 days before she could lay in that same cell again. This means that a queen could be occupying 31,500 cells with developing workers. So you can see right away we've got over twice as many cells as is absolutely required by the queen for egg laying. Now this number, 1,500 eggs per day, is definitely variable. So at certain times a year, probably through May and June, she'll be at peak egg laying rate, and it may exceed that, but for other times of the year, later into the summer, her egg laying rate would likely be less than that. But you can tell we've got a lot of room for variance there. But let's just say that on average, a queen might be taking up 50% of the available space in a brood chamber with her egg laying. So what happens to the rest of it? Well, it's my guess that probably about 20 to 25% right off the top would be taken up by honey. And I would hope that another maybe 20% of that space would be taken up by pollen. In an efficient brood chamber, I hope to see a lot of pollen right near the brood and not stored up above in the honey supers. And the other thing that's going to be happening down there is drone brood, which may be accounted for within her 1,500 eggs per day, but drone brood also has a slightly longer development period, so that would account for a bit of extra space there as well. This is a case where there was actually something to look at with this hive. I had 2 honey supers on it, but this one they really haven't done anything with. And that's because I actually took the queen that was in here away a few weeks ago, and I requeened this colony with a queen cell. So my queen excluder was on top here, and I've already pulled out a frame off the side to make it easy to go through here. And you can tell it's just a smaller population of bees. But with the single brood chamber, it's so much easier to really get in here and have a look at every frame. And right away I can see that there's eggs and some brood in this frame here. So I have a queen that's laying. Okay, and she's been laying for a little while now, because she's got a couple solid frames of brood already here. But relative to the double brood chamber, well, there's obviously half the frames to look at if I want to really figure out what's going on. or in this case, to find my new queen right here. So here's this queen, and I can mark her right now very easily. So that's really what I wanted to say. I use single brood chambers because I do a lot of management within my colonies, always trying to figure out what's going on and how can I fix it quickly. And the single brood chamber enables me to get that done in the most efficient way, I think. So the last thing I wanted to say is just don't take my word for it. Don't take anyone's word for it. Give it a try. If you've been using doubles and you're maybe a little intimidated by your bees, you're finding frames are always really stuck together, but you heard doubles are what you should be using, try it for yourself. Try singles, try something different, and see how you like it. So thanks everyone for watching, and if you liked it, subscribe and watch my other videos and stay tuned for more.